The stars above the Galactic Council arena glowed with a cold light as thousands of alien delegates gathered for the show. It wasn't just a ceremony, it was a test. One designed by the powerful Corvec Empire, known across the galaxy for its brutal military tactics and unforgiving standards. The trial was called the Crucible, and no species had ever passed it without loss. This time, it was humanity's turn. The humans arrived quietly, no large fleet, no royal escort, just one sleek gray transport with a crew of 5. They wore standard black uniforms with no armor enhancements, no energy shielding. At the front of the group walked Mark, tall and calm, with short dark hair and a quiet intensity in his eyes. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. The others followed him closely, nodding to the silent stares of the alien crowd. From the towering balcony above, the Corvec commander, General Trask, stood with arms crossed. "Prepare the test," he said in a low voice. "Let's see how long the humans last." The Crucible was designed to break the body and crush the mind. A shifting combat arena that blended terrain manipulation, environmental extremes, trap sequences, and live combat drones. Many species had tried. Few had made it halfway. Some even believed the test was never meant to be passed, only survived long enough to save face. Humanity didn't know the full scope of what lay ahead, but they agreed anyway. Inside the preparation chamber, the team stretched. Not the normal kind of stretch, but controlled, rhythmic movements. Arm circles, deep squats, breathing exercises. An alien technician nearby whispered, "Are they meditating?" "That won't save them." Mark rolled his shoulders, glanced at his teammates, and said, "Same as always. Keep it tight, breathe, read the field." The steel doors slammed open with a deep clang. The trial had begun. The first section was a jagged metallic wasteland, razor-sharp ground, unstable surfaces, and burning geysers erupting at random. A dust storm raged from the left side, cutting visibility. Gravity levels shifted from light to heavy every few seconds. The human team stepped in, eyes focused. While most species hesitated or stumbled during the opening chaos, the humans moved with precision. They jumped lightly between spikes, rolled beneath collapsing platforms, and slid under falling blades. One soldier named Rena even grinned and said, "It's just like the training compound on Luna Base." A drone swarm activated high-speed, motion-tracking attackers with stun blasts and razor discs. The alien audience leaned forward. This was the point where most challengers broke. But Mark didn't flinch. He pointed. 4 above, 2 flanking. Rena, drop low. Ken, MP now. The humans reacted instantly. Ken tossed a spherical device that pulsed with blue light. The drones dropped mid-air like toys. The team didn't even slow down Dot in the control room. General Trask narrowed his eyes. Increase wind speed. Activate trap sectors. Set gravity to maximum. Back in the field, the terrain shifted again. Massive metal walls slammed down, boxing the team into narrow corridors. Lasers swept across the floor. Spinning blades shot from the walls. Even the air temperature dropped to freezing. But to the humans, it was still just a puzzle. Stay low. Count the timing. Move on 3, Mark said calmly. They timed their moves like dancers. 1, 2, 3, and the whole team ducked, rolled, and ran through the traps in perfect rhythm. One alien commander watching whispered, "They're not just surviving. They're fluid." At the end of the first section, the human team emerged with barely a scratch. Steam rose from the cooling floor. Drones sparked in pieces behind them. The crowd was silent. Mark looked up at the observer's platform for just a second. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He just rolled his neck and muttered, "Warm-up's done." In the council chamber, murmurs spread like wildfire. How is this possible? Did they train for this exact test? Do humans have hidden tech? But there was no tech-only focus, timing, teamwork, and something the aliens didn't understand yet. The test was meant to destroy them. But for the humans, it had just begun. Asterisk, the second phase of the crucible launched with a deep mechanical groan. The arena floor retracted, panels shifted, and new sections rose from below gleaming towers of sharp steel and deadly machinery. Above, a red globe bathed the battlefield. It was called the Wedge Zone, known among warriors as the Backbreaker. Alien soldiers who had tried this part in previous years often limped out broken or didn't make it at all. The Korvac officials leaned forward. Now, one whispered, now we see pain. But the humans just cracked their knuckles. The environment adjusted rapidly. Gravity pulsed first double normal, then near weightlessness, then a brutal triple G slam. Most species found the shift too disorienting. The floor shifted with every footstep, pulling sideways. Magnetic fields sparked across the ceiling, trying to throw weapons out of grip. Mark and his team responded not with panic, but with control. Switch to low stance, Mark said. His voice was calm, not commanding like someone reminding friends how to handle a familiar drill. The humans crouched lower, shifting weight onto their heels. Their feet barely lifted with each step. The floor tried to jerk them around, but their bodies moved like water over stone, flexible, precise, controlled. One alien officer watching on the screen said in disbelief, "They're countering the field with posture." More traps emerged. Flame vents hissed across walkways. Swinging spike arms darted out without warning. Drones returned, this time faster, more aggressive, upgraded for lethal intent. The humans didn't even blink. Rena slid under the flames, brushing close enough to feel the heat. Ken leapt over one of the swinging arms with perfect timing. Drone screamed toward Mark, but he ducked and let it slam into the wall behind him. Then he picked it up and threw it into another. One drone got behind them. It locked onto Emma's signal and fired a shock pulse. The bolt hit her square in the back. The audience gasped. But Emma just rolled her shoulder and muttered, "That tickled." Then she shot the drone in the face. In the observation tower, General Trask leaned forward, face hardening. Impossible. Triple shielded drones don't go down that easy. The technician next to him replied nervously, "They didn't go down easily, sir. They went down efficiently." The trial continued to escalate. A corridor closed around the team, shrinking tighter with each second, while spikes rose from the floor and acid mist drifted down from the vents. The humans didn't panic. They moved like gears in a perfect machine. Mark pointed, gave a silent count with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. On cue, Ken threw a charge that exploded mid-air, triggering the acid misters to redirect. Emma slammed a small jack into the wall, overriding the corridor mechanism. Rena slipped through a side panel that opened just long enough for them to dive through. Single file. From the safety of the other side, they looked back and watched the section seal. Shut behind them, Rena turned to Mark. That was new. He nodded. Still too slow. We can do better. In the audience stands, murmurs turned into quiet panic. These humans weren't just surviving the test, they were analyzing it, learning from it, and improving on the fly. An alien war captain stood. This was a test of strength, not strategy. They weren't supposed to adapt. General Trask slammed his hand down. Then escalate the test. Take off the limits. I want them crawling before the final round. But inside the crucible, the humans gathered near a glowing rest platform designed to give alien species a break before the last two sections. Mark simply sat down, pulled out a protein bar, and took a bite. The others joined him, casually chatting, wiping off dust and minor cuts. To the galaxy watching, it was a military trial of death. To the humans, it was just a training day. Asterisk, when the third phase of the Crucible activated, even the war-hardened council members flinched. This was storm depth, the most chaotic layer of the trial, designed to push coordination, endurance, and pain resistance beyond safe limits. Even Korvek elites only attempted it with full armor and backup. Most species never made it this far. Those who did were often pulled out unconscious or missing limbs. But the humans? They stood up from their short rest and walked in like they were entering a park. A massive wind tunnel greeted them first. Gale force blasts slammed into the corridor, hurling debris, jagged rocks, and metallic shards. Every 10 seconds, artificial lightning arced through the walls. Visibility was near 0. And yet the humans moved forward, step by step, hands shielding their eyes, but never once looking lost. Emma shouted through the wind. "Feels like a walk in northern Iceland." Mark grinned slightly. "This wins." Got nothing on hurricane drills. Outside the arena, an insectoid diplomat turned to a monitor. Are they ... Comparing the trial to weather conditions? In the center of the wind tunnel, the test changed. Gravity shifted wildly, flinging them upward, then slamming them down. Floating metal blocks spun around them, some carrying spikes, others with magnetic fields that pulled weapons from unprepared hands. One by one, the blocks rushed past. The human team didn't panic, they adjusted. Ken launched himself upward during a low-gravity window, kicking off a block and flipping onto a ledge. Rena followed, timing her movement with a shift in pull, grabbing a rod mid-air. Mark anchored the team by tying a retractable cord to the wall, letting others swing from it. No screams, no hesitation, just movement, just rhythm. Alien commanders began whispering. They must have studied the Crucible. They can't be improvising this well. But they were, because Earth's military didn't train soldiers for clean battlefields. They trained for failure, chaos, and the unknown. Pulse drones incoming. Emma called. 3 high-speed drones shot down the tunnel, energy cannons glowing. Red, these weren't practice drones. These were elimination units, meant to remove unqualified contestants. The crowd leaned forward. Mark raised his hand. Rena slipped 2 discs into the air-static charges that disrupted the drones. Guidance. Emma and Ken leaped out and grabbed 2 drones by their wings, flipping them mid-air and crashing them into the walls. The third drone locked onto Mark. He didn't flinch. He stepped aside at the last second, let it pass him, then calmly crushed it against the wall using only one arm and a pressure-triggered blade. Sparks fell like raindrops. The silence in the control tower was broken only by the Korvik general's angry hiss. This level was made for warlords. They're not warlords. But on the screens, the humans moved forward, faster, now stronger, more relaxed. They had adapted. The harder the test became, the more in sync they were, and that terrified the galaxy. Outside the arena, commentators from several species broadcast live updates. Day 3 of the Crucible trial. And the Terrans, yes, Terrans are showing what can only be described as efficiency beyond reason. They don't stumble. They don't cry. They stretch between challenges. One alien host even joked nervously, "Maybe we should rename the Crucible to Human Cardio Day." Inside the trial zone, the terrain changed again. They now stood at the entrance to a high tower with rotating floors, shifting staircases, and time-delayed lasers. Designed to make challengers disoriented and isolated, the tower was the final mental breakpoint. Instead, Mark just adjusted his collar and said, "We've done worse in VR. Stay sharp." The tower tried its best. The floor rotated, separating them. But the humans had trained for separation. Each member moved independently, navigating traps alone, yet all still arrived at the tower summit within 5 seconds of each other. Mark looked at the sensor drone hovering nearby and spoke directly to the watching galaxy. Who designs a tower that can't even confuse a squad? The message echoed in hundreds of command halls across alien worlds. They hadn't just underestimated humans. They had misunderstood them completely. Asterisk, the fourth phase of the Thor. Crucible wasn't supposed to exist. It had been hidden deep in the original. Plans an unfinished gauntlet, designed only in theory, never tested. It was called the Labyrinth Zone. It was meant to disorient, confuse, and break the will of even the strongest. The designers had once joked, if anyone reaches this, they won't leave the same. But now someone had reached it. And not just anyone. Humans. The Korvac High Council watched the screens in stunned silence. Around the galaxy, thousands of alien commanders, scientists, and analysts had tuned in. What started as a side event had turned into a galactic phenomenon. A species no one had taken seriously was casually rewriting everything. Inside the arena, the lights dimmed. New walls rose black, cold, seamless. The humans were surrounded on all sides. Shifting corridors opened and closed with no warning. Floors vanished under pressure. Illusions flickered, designed to simulate allies calling for help, or enemies around every corner. It was mental warfare. Rena moved first. She touched the wall and muttered, "Holographic projection." "Not solid," Emma responded. "Smells like ozone. Illusion tech. Let's follow the real airflow." They moved as if they'd trained for it, and they had on Earth, in mazes built to scramble soldiers' senses. They had run drills through blackout zones, had trained under strobe lights, sound loops, and false enemy signals. Nothing in the labyrinth surprised them. Mark led the way, walking in silence, eyes closed for a full 30 seconds. When he opened them, he smiled faintly. "They're trying to use panic. That's not going to work on us." The team kept moving. At one point, a wall screamed as if a teammate was crushed behind it. Another time, a floor panel showed fake blood stains leading to a trap. Drones floated above, projecting images of friends and families in danger. None of the humans stopped. They just kept breathing, kept watching their corners, kept moving forward. One alien general in the observation room whispered, "They aren't even blinking at fear triggers." A younger officer asked, "Didn't they lose thousands in their first space war? Maybe this doesn't scare them." Back in the labyrinth, Mark paused at a 4-way intersection. Each path shimmered with a different color, pulsing like a heartbeat. Rena raised a brow. "They're trying to split us." Mark shook his head. "No need. They want confusion. So we give them focus." He picked a direction without hesitation. The others followed. Every time the trial tried to disorient them, the humans leaned on something the galaxy couldn't measure: trust. Their team didn't need constant orders. They moved like parts of one organism, always covering each other's blind spots. Then came the next twist: hallucination. Gas a final trick. The floor sprayed a fine mist. Alien species who had experienced it described terror beyond description. Personal nightmares, twisted images, complete mental collapse. The humans walked straight through it. Mark blinked a few times, paused, and said, "Well, that was weird. I think I just saw my math teacher from grade school yelling at me." Rena laughed. "Mine was just a broken coffee machine." Horrifying. And they kept walking. In the command room, a technician stood in disbelief. They laughed. In the gas zone, the Korvac general's hands trembled. This test was never passed. Not by anyone, ever. But the screens didn't lie. The humans exited the labyrinth. No limping, no hesitation. Calm and focused, they walked into the final chamber of Phase 4 open space. Clear floor, one sensor drone floating silently in the center. It scanned. Them. A message flashed across every galactic screen. Subject species, Homo sapiens, psychological resistance, exceeded. Below that, a second line appeared. Trial intensity increase denied. System overload. The crucible itself had reached its limit. The galaxy watched as 5 humans stood there, looking around like they were waiting for the real challenge to begin. Emma spoke to the air. So, are we done here? Mark turned toward the nearest camera and gave the faintest smirk. Next time, try adding a warm-up. The message rippled across thousands of alien channels. The myth of Earth's weakness was gone. And somewhere deep in space, new calculations were already being made. The crucible had reached its final stage, or so everyone thought. But deep in the Corvette command vault, hidden behind sealed layers of protocol, sat one last measure. It was never meant to be activated. Not in front of witnesses. Not for demonstration. It was a fail-safe, meant only for those rare situations when a species was so powerful, so disruptive, that it had to be shown who was in control. The code was entered with shaking hands. Release. The war sentinels, General Trask growled. A silent alarm echoed inside the crucible structure. Deep below the ground, armored doors hissed open. And from the dark, 3 war mechs rose. Each was 20 feet tall, built from neutron alloy, armed with plasma blades, multi-lock cannons, and AI that could mimic battlefield tactics. They were relics from the Corvix's ancient wars, used once to wipe out an uprising on a planet of giant predators. They were being sent after 5 humans. Inside the arena, the ground trembled. Emma looked around. Anyone else feel that? From the far wall, 3 massive panels dropped. The war mechs stepped into the light. Rena blinked. Well, that's new. A deep mechanical voice echoed from above. Phase Omega has begun. Engage and eliminate. All across the galaxy live. Feeds cut to red alerts. This phase had no record. This wasn't part of the agreement. Delegates shouted, calling the move illegal, a breach of trial protocol. But it was too late. The mechs opened fire. Blue plasma lit the sky. The blast radius alone could melt through standard armor. Any other team would have been vaporized in seconds. But the humans? They moved. Mark shouted, split and circle. Blind zones behind the knees. Stay out of cannon arc. The team scattered like lightning. Ken ducked left, sliding under a burst of energy. Rena rolled behind a pillar, pulled out her grenade, and tossed it at a joint. Emma fired rounds at the central unit's visual sensors. Mark ran forward, not away. He sprinted toward the mech. Mark, you're insane. Emma yelled. Mark didn't answer. He launched himself up the side of the mech using a grappling cord, swung over the shoulder, landed on its back, and began tearing into a hatch with a fusion knife. The mech bucked and twisted, trying to throw him off, but he stayed locked on, slicing deeper until a wire snapped and sparks erupted. The first mech dropped to one knee, then collapsed with a loud thud. Rena shouted, "One down!" But there were 2 more. Ken ducked and rolled as a cannon blew a crater behind him. He tossed a magnetic mine onto the second mech's leg. It blinked once, then detonated, crippling the entire lower half. Emma finished it off with a blast from her pulse launcher that left the third one. It was the largest and fastest, covered in extra plating. Its cannons turned red hot as it charged straight for the humans. Now, Mark called out. The team moved as one. Ken fired at its feet. Emma blinded it. Rena climbed the back, slammed an override chip into the processing port. The mech paused, twitched, and shut down. Silence. The battlefield was scorched. Smoke curled into the air. The mechs lay motionless, and 5 humans stood untouched. Above, in the observation chamber, no one said a word. Finally, General Trask slammed his fist against the console. They should have been destroyed. But the screen only displayed 5 human silhouettes, standing tall in the council hall. The votes came quickly. Hundreds of species logged their reports. Some were shocked, some were impressed. A few were scared. Across the stars, whispers turned to one repeating phrase. The humans broke the test. But the truth was even simpler. They didn't break it. They just stretched through it. And now, the galaxy had seen their hidden weapon, not tech, not strength, not rage. It was their refusal to quit. Asterisk smoke still lingered over the shattered mechs as the humans stood in silence. The floor beneath their feet, once polished steel, was now cracked and scorched. All systems in the arena had gone quiet. No lights blinked, no traps reset. The crucible had nothing left to throw at them. Emma looked up at the drone camera floating overhead and raised an eyebrow. So, was that it? No reply came in the observation deck. General Trask had gone pale. His hands trembled on the console. Dozens of alien leaders stared at him, some with disbelief, others with visible anger. You activated an illegal phase, one elder snapped. They still beat it. They weren't supposed to make it this far, Trask muttered. But they had. Inside the arena, Mark calmly walked to the center platform, a circle that usually lit up when the trial ended. It flickered once, then turned gold. A computerized voice echoed through the chamber. Trial complete. Subject species, Homo sapiens. Final rating, undefined. Recommendation, observe. Do not engage. Do not provoke. A message repeated again. In over 50 alien languages, a second drone flew down and hovered in front of Mark. It was programmed to ask the final question to the last standing team. Do you have any words for the council? Mark paused, looking to his team. Ken shrugged. Rena gave a small smirk. Emma raised her eyebrows as if to say, Go on. Mark stepped forward. His voice was steady. Your test was impressive, he said, nodding politely. Clever designs, smart AI, brutal setups. But he looked around at the craters, the sparks, the broken machines. You designed this to crush fear, break resolve, test limits. For humans, that's called training day. The drone word. Quietly. Mark continued. We don't get stronger because things are easy. We get stronger because they're hard. That's how we prepare. So if this was meant to humble us. He looked into the lens, his gaze sharp and clear. Maybe you should be the ones training harder. The drone paused. Message logged. The platform lit up, and the doors opened behind them, signaling the trial was complete. No applause came. No music played. Just a soft mechanical hum and the cold realization, spreading through the galaxy. Humanity had not only survived the impossible, they had made it look casual. The team walked out slowly, without rushing. Rena even stretched her arms behind her back. As they exited, that was good movement, she said. Should do that again. Emma nodded. Yeah, real good warm-up. I think we're finally loose. Ken chuckled. Wonder what Phase 2 looks like. The council chamber above was in chaos. Alien ambassadors demanded new safety protocols. War generals argued about Earth's rising threat. Strategists scrambled to adjust future simulations. Recruitment officers begged for human trainers to be shared across species alliances. Some were furious, some were afraid, but many were inspired. Back on Earth, the footage of the Crucible trial was broadcast worldwide. Humans watched in awe as their small team calmly walked through death machines. And nightmare designs like a fitness circuit. Social media lit up. One post went viral in minutes. They built a test to crush us. We used it to warm up. Earth isn't behind. We've just been stretching. Within days, human military recruitment spiked. Alien academies began requesting Terran advisors. And deep in the outer colonies, rebel groups started studying Earth's endurance training, hoping to resist their own oppressive empires. Humanity hadn't just passed the test. They had sent a message. You can build the hardest trial in the galaxy, but if you test humans, be ready for them to treat it like a warm-up lap. Days after the Crucible ended, the galaxy still hadn't recovered. The footage was everywhere on military feeds, civilian broadcasts, academy training programs, even entertainment channels. One moment echoed across all of them. The moment 5 humans stood unshaken before 3 towering war mechs, smiled, and dismantled them. What once was mockery calling Earth primitive, wild, and soft had turned to silence. And then to questions. Who trained them? How did they handle that much stress? Why didn't they break? The answers weren't found in secret tech or experimental gene mods or alien augmentation. They were found in simple things: teamwork, grit, physical training, mental focus, and a strange human ability to laugh even when facing death. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Dozens of species gave their reports. Some wanted sanctions against Earth for making the trial look like a joke. Others called for Earth to lead joint training programs. One representative simply said, "If we can't beat them, maybe we should ask them to train us." Back on Earth, the squad returned without ceremony. They arrived in the same simple transport they had come in. Reporters flooded the terminal, shouting questions. One leaned in and asked Mark, "What was the worst part of the Crucible?" Mark paused, thought for a second, and said, "The food." Laughter erupted. The humans didn't act like celebrities or champions. They acted like professionals who'd completed a mission and were ready for the next. They didn't brag, didn't gloat. That, more than anything, made the galaxy watch them even closer. On the distant world of Veltra, military instructors played back Crucible footage in slow motion. They studied human posture, movement efficiency, and team coordination. One drill master rewrote an entire academy training program in response. On the icy moons of Skarn, alien children copied Mark's slide through a plasma trap in their games. The move became a popular new holosport move known as the Terran Shift. In the elite halls of the Corvic, General Trask sat in silence. His empire had built the Crucible to show dominance. But Earth hadn't just passed it. They'd reset the scale. And in doing so, they'd shaken the foundations of power. One advisor approached him. "What shall we do if Earth is challenged again?" Trask didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "If we challenge them again, we better hope it's not a rest day." Meanwhile, back on Earth, the 5-person squad met in a quiet training hall. Mark tied a towel around his neck and looked around. "Same circuit as usual?" Rena nodded. "Only this time, maybe a little more resistance." Ken added, "Got some heavier drones to throw into the mix." Emma stretched. "Hope it's harder than last week." They weren't training because they needed to prove something. They weren't waiting for applause. They were just doing what humans had always done, preparing. Because out in the stars, new threats were always coming. And when they did, humanity wouldn't flinch. They'd stretch, and they'd face it together.